Welcome to Believe in the Entrepreneur, where the mission is to tell the story of the entrepreneur and how they overcame the obstacles in life and in business to get where they are today. Welcome to another episode of Believe in the Entrepreneur, and I'm super excited because I have a professional financial advisor, Ismael Romero, who's well known here in not just Bakersfield, but basically all of Kern County, if not all of California. So Ish, thanks for being on my show.
Thank you for having me.
So for those that don't know Ish, he's pretty much well respected. People trust him with his money or their money to invest with their funds. They trust Ish. He's well known, very well respected, has a lot of expertise. So, I mean, you guys are in for a real treat for those that are listening. But Ismael, tell me, for those that don't know you, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me who you are, and then, how you became a financial advisor.
Well, I kind of go back to when I was younger, 17. I was very interested in investments early on. I would always ask my dad, "Hey, Dad, what's the return on this rental property that you have?" I was always interested in those numbers. So that's what really, since then. And when I was 18, I bought my first mutual fund. What 18-year-old is thinking about? Yeah, I walked into the current schools. I had I think I put $1,500 into a mutual fund. Wow. And it grew all the way to like 8,000. I took it out just 5 years ago.
Right.
So I was always interested in money, investments,
right,
et cetera. And then I went on to Cal State to get my degree in finance and economics. So that kind of teed it up for that. And then I did an internship at Morgan Stanley for 2 years, and that's really where I learned the technicals of the investment world.
Okay.
Didn't really have, who would trust a 19-year-old, right?
Right.
To invest, money for them.
Right.
So that's really, I learned the technical aspect of it.
Okay.
How stock works, what stocks to buy and why, what to look at.
Right.
So I had, fun doing that. Yeah. And then I went to, I worked for, actually the guy that I work with now, partnered with, he hired me in the business 15 years ago at Morgan Stanley. So
did he really?
Yeah. So that's kind of the history. And then, obviously he moved to the Bay Area. He offered me the position to go, but he didn't want to pay enough for the cost of living. At the time I was an entrepreneur, I was an employee, right?
Right.
So I went to work for Wells Fargo, spent 8 years there as a premier banker, private banker. And then, I think I was making like $95,000 a year back then. This was like 8 years ago.
Wow.
And I was like, it just wasn't salary. And I was always the type of employee that, would take 5-minute breaks just real quick. Like people would go in the back and hang out. And I'm like, next client, next, let's keep going. Let's keep pushing. So yeah, and then at Wells Fargo, I became a financial advisor. So I went from making $100,000 salary to zero.
Gotcha.
Like this was back in 2016, I think now.
Okay.
So yeah, did I answer that?
Yeah. So you basically, but you know what? I'm going to even take it back because you said as an 18-year-old, you invested $1,500 and you bought your first mutual fund. But even what 18-year-old has $1,500?
Well,
I didn't have $1,500 as an 18.
So my entrepreneur spirit started really young, dude. My first entrepreneurial thing was when I was 17. I was cutting hair. Like a lot of my friends that, probably might hear this will know that I cut their hair.
Really?
16, 17, I was doing barbershop. I was, my dad had like an extra bedroom.
Uh-huh.
Actually it was an office turned into a barbershop.
Okay.
Sorry, I think like at 15 or 16, I started cutting hair.
Yeah.
All the way up to 18. But during college, bro, I was cutting hair on the weekends. I was working at my uncle's restaurant, La Cabana.
Really?
And I was working at current schools, wow. And going to college, man. So my college life was, yeah. So I started saving really young. So
right.
So that's kind of where I am today, right? That's
for sure
the perfect scenario of who I am today and what I do.
That's pretty cool because it shows that one, you work hard, right? To balance school and then be doing haircuts and then working at the restaurant, going to school, and then not just that, like a lot of people make the money, but then they'll go spend it on stupid stuff.
Yeah, and there's a story about that. So looking at understanding who I am. So my parents came here from Mexico with nothing, right? Mm-hmm. My dad was 17. All he knew how to do was work and save and invest. Work and save and invest. That's all he did. He didn't know how to spend money because he feared being poor, right? So a little bit of that translated over to me.
Right.
naturally, right? Because, you learn what you know about money, about anything, about life, about values, morals from your parents. That's
Right.
90% of our values come from there, right?
For sure. Yeah, I think your parents have a big influence in your life, and a lot of people, like even just your spirituality too.
Yeah.
Like your beliefs, they're ingrained from your parents, right?
Oh yeah, dude. My mom is like she was a spiritual leader of the house. And, my dad's personality, my mom's personality, I have a little bit more of my mom's personality. So that's where I get my high faith. And everybody knows that. I'm not afraid to share it.
Right.
So that's where I get it from her. My
Right.
brother and my sister, they have a little bit of a different personality, like my dad.
Right.
So yeah, my mom was a spiritual leader. So, traditional Catholic, prayer every day, rosary every day. That's just how I grew up.
Right. And I think you mentioned, your dad was, afraid of, he was a saver. He was afraid of like being poor or losing basically his wealth, which is why you became a wealth manager. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, as a wealth manager, a lot of people, they I would say the majority of people, they know how to make, especially entrepreneurs, they know how to make money. They're either whatever industry they're in, they know how to hustle. As a CPA, as an accountant, and tracking their financials, I'm like, what the hell are you doing with your money, man? Like, they don't know how to manage their money. Or if I even ask them, like, how much money did they make last year? They're like clueless. And that's why people like yourself and, people like me, they reach out to us, right? Because that's their weakness.
Yeah.
And then they're good at, like, if they're in construction, they're good at, building you a house.
Yeah.
Or if they're in whatever, if they're truck drivers, they're good at, just providing for their family. But money management is like their weakness, right? And so people blow basically their earnings by either overpaying in taxes or spending it on things they shouldn't, right? And they never even think about like retirement. They don't think about insurance or life insurance or any of that. And I know you're a big educator. And you even just like, you just pour yourself into people and you just try to help and you try to service people. And I think like, I see that in you. For people that don't know you, like you just try to help and you just try to be, just be a helping hand. And I think that's something really special about you.
Yeah.
But tell me, like, if someone like, how does that consultation process go? How do you like, how do you make them aware? I know you've kind of like evolved as a financial advisor in your career, but tell me a little bit about like, how that education process goes.
Yeah. So typically, my average, I think you asked earlier, my average client is someone that is near retirement. So somebody that is worked for a company for 20, 30 years. I have clients that work at Chevron, SoCal Gas, PG&E, private sector employers, right? A lot of times, the baby boom generation, they stay with companies for 30 years, right? They're saving 10% a year for 30 years, right? So at some point when they retire, a lot of them may or may not know anything about stocks or mutual funds or anything about that, right? So they don't understand how to manage that. And so they hire me basically when they retire, they hire me to manage their 401k assets that they roll over from their employer.
Gotcha.
So I open what is called an IRA, right? So it rolls just like you teach your dog to roll over. You
right.
teach your IRA or 401k to roll over.
Right.
And then, so from there, my partner and I, we actually started our own fund, mutual fund. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So we have 5 mutual funds that we have ranging from most aggressive all the way to most conservative. So
okay.
We are the managers of the mutual fund. So part of my job is a little bit of the technical aspect to help in choosing which investments have the best risk-adjusted return,
right,
in the portfolio. So,
right,
that is my poster child client,
right.
I do have some younger clients that are starting entrepreneurs, because I mean these guys are in their 60s and 70s, right?
Right.
I'm only going to have them for maybe 20 more years,
right?
I plan on being in the business for another at least 30 years, right?
Right.
So I have to invest in the young guys, right? So because they're going to have $1 million in their 401k at some point in the future,
right.
And I want to be the guy that. So I have both aspects. So
right.
I'm more focused on the investment side as of when I made the move to start my own Romero Wealth Management is what I call it, and I partner with another partner, Lattice Wealth Management. So I have my clients, he has his clients. We manage money. We create our fund together. So that's what we do. So,
Gotcha.
His clients and my clients have similar portfolios depending on risk tolerance.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think a lot of people like, some of my relatives, I won't say their names, but like they're afraid to invest into the stock market because they're just not educated in it. They're comfortable with real estate. That's what they know, but they're like, oh, stocks, like, I don't know what even stocks are. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned, what's your risk adversity, right? If you're conservative or aggressive, right? And then you can actually, there's certain, funds where your risk, if you have lower risk, you have lower returns, obviously, but then your assets going to be preserved.
Yeah. If you understand real estate, I mean, if you look at historically, real estate and stocks have a similar correlation, similar risk profile. If you look at just over the last cycle, when real estate dropped by 40%, stocks did too.
Right.
Last year, the stock market was up 38. Our portfolio was up 38%. The stock market was up 27.
Right.
Real estate was up probably 20%, 25%, right?
Right.
So you see how there's like a strong correlation
definitely
of those markets. So, stocks are just a different, because they kind of go up and down with the economic cycle, just like stocks and real estate. So,
right. That makes sense. And I think one of the things though, that's interesting, like even though that stocks and real estate are correlated, right? For people that are in real estate, they don't feel that same pain because like, especially if they have rental properties, because they're just, I'm getting the rental income. Yeah. Even though it's doing the same thing.
Doing the same thing, yeah.
It's doing this, but with stocks, they look at the value and they're like, holy crap, it just went down.
Yeah, a daily value, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, now they're freaking out. And it's like, dude, it's the same thing that your house just did.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. No,
but it's a different mindset.
Yeah, it's a different mindset. And most people, psychologically speaking, from a behavioral finance standpoint, it's easier for people to stomach retirement money than like cash in the bank. And I can go on and on about behavioral finance and the psychology of money in retirement versus in money in their bank.
Right.
They're more attached to that money versus the 401k is like, oh, I know it's there. It's like, so they're less worried about that money versus their money in their savings. That's just psychologically. But
that makes sense because, I mean, they're probably using their bank for like living expenses. Yeah, exactly. Where retirement, it's probably like they don't look at it as much.
Yeah.
So that definitely makes sense. But for those people that do look at their retirement accounts and the dips and stuff, like I almost feel like your job is almost to be a counselor too. Like,
oh yeah, big part of it is, it's funny that I have clients on both spectrums, right? I have clients believe it or not, I have clients that I have to convince to spend money.
Really?
Yeah. I have one client, he's got like $2.5 million in his retirement account.
Uh-huh.
And again, he grew up kind of like me, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's 65, but he's so just frugal with everything. I'm like, dude, you're never going to outlive this money. You need to spend at least $100,000 a year for you to even get close to spending this money.
Right.
Because he's just living off the interest. So,
right.
And then there's people that are making $300,000, $400,000,
right,
that I can't convince to save $20,000. Right. So it's like, there's both spectrums. Right. My favorite clients are these guys, right? Because I charge a percentage of assets that they have, right?
Right.
So I charge 1.25% of the assets.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, these clients I enjoy because I love to see them. I like to see the light bulb, right? Like, oh shoot, what am I doing with my money?
Right.
I need to tell my money where to go instead of wondering where it went.
Right.
So,
yeah, and I think if they don't have somebody like you to tell them that, they're probably not even going to do it because they need that guidance. They need that awareness.
Yeah. And it's tougher to have those clients want to sit down with you, right? Because they might either be embarrassed or whatever.
Right.
But I always give them unconditional love when I sit with them. I tell them no judgment. I'm not going to share anything with anybody.
Right.
Because I want them to feel safe that way. The biggest benefit to me would be to see them down the road like really succeed financially.
Right. And I think financial advisors, like a lot of them are paid off commission, right? So at least like I'm just putting myself in those shoes of those people that are probably like scared to reach out to financial advisors. Like, oh man, he's just trying to get a commission. But if they know Ish, like Ish is not worried. If they know you, you're not worried about the commission. Like you're just trying to help them out, which is what I love about you. You're just like literally like genuinely just trying to look out for their best interests. And there's like no sales pressure. Like you're like the complete opposite of like people on the Wolf of Wall Street, right? That financial advisor that's like, yeah, you know, they're ringing the bell. It's like, you're like the complete opposite of that. You're just like you say, you pour your love into them. And it's like, that feels so good. Cause it's like, I don't feel like pressure, like, oh, damn, I'm going to have to buy some kind of insurance product. Or, oh, damn, I'm going to have to like make sure I put in money into a retirement account. Although Ish is going to use the sales tactic. Cause I feel like the financial industry, in my opinion, has a lot of those people and it gives a negative connotation. Yeah. But you're like the opposite of that.
Yeah. Well, you know, God's blessed me with enough resources. So I used to like focus on like, I want to make this much. I want to make this much. Now I just focus on, I want to help people. I'm going to trust that the money will follow.
Right.
Like if I provide the service and I outperform and I do my job, I'm just going to trust the money will follow. I don't worry about that aspect.
And I think that you just hit it home because when you have that mindset of just like, hey, I'm just going to try to help people. Those are the ones that actually make the most money. Yeah. Like the ones that are trying to like make the sale are usually the ones that make less. Because people know how to read, you know, they can tell like, yeah, you're just trying to like sell me, as opposed to like, dude, this guy's just trying to help me out. And then that's when they open up their wallet. Yeah. Because they trust you.
But there has to be the value from you know, my point of it. And I don't, so typically my process is I listen to them, understand their goals, wants, needs, educate to them as their options, and they make the decision. Right. A lot of them ask me, hey, what would you do? And then I tell them, hey, this is what I would do, and this is why. Right. So I'm a big why guy, so I like to explain why.
Right. Yeah. Now, for someone on the other side that's like very frugal, right? You said you have clients that are like, dude, you're not spending enough money. Like you're gonna basically you're gonna not outlive this money. How do you have those conversations, or how do you have them snap out of that, or like, hey, it's okay to spend some money? You know?
Well, typically in those cases, I try to understand where they came from. Right. Right. I try to educate myself as to where they came from, why, because if you know my story, just like I shared right now, you probably understand how I tick. Right. You know, you share your story and you know how people tick, but typically with those clients, I'll ask them, hey, like, what did your parents leave you? Like, do you wish your parents would have did more things and travel and do things like that? And they're like, yeah. And then like, so it's a lot of counseling, like you said, right? Right. So I try to get into their subconscious mind to help them understand why they're doing what they're doing. And then I say, okay, well, and then we talk about a plan, right? Like, okay, so let's just say you want to leave your kids $500,000 or $1 million. Okay. Let's reverse engineer the numbers. Okay. This is how much you have to spend every month. And I always project like 6% return, just conservatively on their investments. But so I try to coach them into like, okay. And yeah, dude, I have one client, he's actually flying out to Bora Bora tonight.
Really?
And he's going all out, man.
Nice. Going all out. Yeah. And was that because of you?
I would say I have something to do with it. He bought, he had these old golf clubs and I convinced him to buy new ones.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool. So it's funny because you're like the wealth reserver, the wealth manager, and you're like, dude, spend money.
Yeah, but in his case, in his case is, I have to. There's an extreme, like I said earlier, right? So, so it's, for somebody, because typically think about it, like 65-year-old, you're probably only going to have maybe 20 years of you wanting to do something. Right. Once you're 75, 80, you're just going to.
You can't really do anything anymore. Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to have the energy to do as much as you can. I mean, there are some 80-year-olds that are running around everywhere doing everything, but typical, just, human nature, right?
Right. It's just, what typically happens at that age. And what's interesting is that like, most people, when they're thinking about like spending money, right? They don't really know exactly what to spend their money on, or like what they should invest in, or they're just like completely confused. So like, how do you like educate them like, hey, this is how much you should be spending, or this is how much you should be reserving? Like, what's your advice?
I just say 15% of what you're earning, save it for the future. So 15, whether it be in your 401k, whether it be in a mutual fund or whatever, it's 15% as long as you're. I mean, there are some people that are like 40 and they don't have anything, so they're way behind. So I kind of let them know that they need to get a little bit.
They got to catch up.
They got to catch up. Yeah. So
right.
So that's just, case by case, kind of what I see. But then again, like there's my value systems and then their value system may be different. So I try to understand them before I, because at the end of the day, I want them to ask me, what should I do?
Right.
Because if I just go in there and tell them, hey, you need to do this,
right.
they're probably not gonna,
right.
It's not gonna affect them positively. Right.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. You have to understand who you're like their mindset, right? Their mentality, like who they are as a person and what they're, like you said, like their upbringing.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's going to be a lot of their kind of subconscious mind, their thoughts. And once you tap into that subconscious mind, then you connect at a very personal level. And now you can they trust you to make recommendations. I think that's so key.
Yeah. Yeah. So I my favorite type of client to work with is, like I said, somebody in their mid 50s, 60s that are near retirement.
Right.
Actually, I just got approved for a new, I didn't think this was even possible before, but so I'm able to now help existing employees of company. Let's say you're an employee of PG&E and you have, $500,000 or $1 million in your 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in your 401k, the employee is responsible for the investments.
Mm-hmm.
The investments, most of the people don't know how they work, right?
Right.
So my job is to really understand the portfolio, understand the risks of return. Like, for example, I'm just going to give a recent example.
Mm-hmm.
As you guys know, rates are going up, right?
Right.
So there's a inverse correlation between interest rates and bond prices, right?
Okay.
So a lot of people might have, let's say an average of 25-year bonds in their portfolios.
Mm-hmm.
So if interest rates go up by 1%, which they have in the last, that affects the bond price by 10%. Well, if you look at my clients, they have short-term bonds, so 1 or 2 years paying 1 or 2%. So their bonds are not being affected as much as the people that might have long-dated bonds in their 401k.
Right.
So my job is just to understand and try to get I can't say the word guarantee, but I'm trying to get the best possible return for the amount of risk you're taking.
Right. Yeah, that's important. That's why I think that someone like you is your network is your net worth. Mm-hmm. And I think having someone like you on their team, it's that's why they trust you because that's your expertise, right?
Yeah, I have some clients that don't have any idea what I do.
Right.
The technical aspect of it. They
right.
just trust me. And then I do have fun with some engineer guys that they challenge me. Those are the most fun because they challenge me to ask questions. They ask the difficult questions. That I'm like, oh man, good question. I need to figure that out.
Yeah.
So I have probably 10% are the engineers types. And then the other are just people that, they trust. Okay, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But it's still important for me to educate.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you say that because I see that as well. Even from a tax perspective, there's certain people that they're just hey, Joel, I trust you with my tax return. Yeah. And then there's other people that are okay, explain to me how that QBI deduction works.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I are that type of guy, right? You and I are that
the
type
analytical.
Of guy.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting. But you know what I've learned though, is that, even though I'm very analytical by nature, because I just like solving puzzles. I like putting pieces together or understanding the why.
Curiosity, yeah.
Yeah, that's my natural. That's how I was raised. But through mentoring and just coaching, I've learned to also learn how to also be the people that are just trustworthy.
Yeah.
Because if you analyze everything, you almost alter your growth.
Yeah.
Because it's dude, instead of analyzing that 3-4 times, you could have moved on to other bigger and better things. Exactly. And that's why you just partner up with people like you. Hey, you know what, Ish? As long as you understand my goals.
Yeah.
And what I want to achieve in my, my life cycle, and what my can't think of the word, my legacy. Mm-hmm. As long as you understand my goals, it's dude, I don't want to know what bonds you're gonna put them in, what stocks. I was dude, as long as you know my goals, I trust you.
Yeah, and that's 85-90% of my clients.
Yeah, but you're right. The engineer kind of people, ask those good questions, and then that's when you start to learn too. Because
that's where I keep me sharp. They keep me sharp.
Yeah, because you're you know what? I'm not sure. Let me actually get back to you on
so
that.
I mean, I think I'm more of an extrovert. I love people. I love learning about people. I love so. I actually recently paid for I'm paying for a financial advisor coach to help me understand what roles in my business is what I really want. And I realized that recently I realized that I'm a people person. I like to be out there talking to people. I can talk to anybody at the airport. You probably read that book, How to Talk to Anyone, right?
Yeah.
And that's just my natural. I don't have to try. I don't have to, I don't have to try to be that. So, so understanding the strengths.
Yeah.
Cause like one of the mistakes that I made in the beginning is, I try to do everything myself. I had to open accounts, do all the compliance stuff. It was so stressful for me.
Right.
And then I learned finally to let it go, give it to somebody that's their strength.
Right.
And I see them thrive in that.
Right.
Like it's and it's something I learned maybe 6 years ago. So
yeah, that's important. That's important, right? Like knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, because then you can just delegate your weaknesses and just focus on your strengths. Like that's why you're always at the golf course.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great.
Oh, you're always at the baseball game. I'm like, man, I want to live Ish's life. Like you just saying hi to everybody and making money by talking to people.
It's intentional though. Like when I go golfing, I always have I either play with the client and I ask them to invite their friend. Who plays on the golf course, right?
Right.
Usually 55, 6-year-old retired guys.
Right.
And those are my target market. So
yeah.
So I like to spend time out there. Just sometimes like on a Friday, if I play every Friday, by the way.
Okay.
If I don't have a client with me, I'll go out there by myself and just tag along and then start meeting people. I've gotten a few clients like that. So,
really? Just by going out there?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's part of my marketing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's very tactical. Like even though you're going and having fun, like
it's with purpose. Yeah,
like where your ideal client is located, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's what a lot of people, they try to, like, when they're starting a business, they're not really sure like how to get clients, but really you just have to know where your ideal client hangs out. Mm-hmm. And for you, it's the golf course.
Yeah. Like 2020, I had membership at Stockdale. And I was there like twice. I mean, because the office were closed and everything was closed. I'm like, I need to go to network somewhere. So I got a membership at Stockdale, and I mean, within 3 or 4 months, everybody knew me, like who I was and what I did. Yeah, and that awareness is there. And I actually had a call from one of the guys out of the blue, just like, hey, dude, I remember you did this, but my brother-in-law is retiring and this and that, and I'm perfect. Yeah. So those are little seeds that I planted, at the golf course, and right. Yeah, so
that's cool. I mean, if and what I love about you, Ish, is that like you're really good at building relationships, mm-hmm. right? You're really good at just like people just like know you and they respect you and they just like everywhere you go. Like I remember I went out to lunch with you and it's like we were literally having something to eat and I think there was like 6 people that interrupted our lunch just to come say hi and stuff. Really? I don't know the exact number. I'm gonna count it, but I'm pretty sure I got it right.
It's just just being genuine. Yeah. And loving people genuinely and understanding and just being a kind person. And like I said, that's something I got from my mom. My mom is like the most kind-hearted spirit. Like people go to her, they trust her. They, like my dad's family, they trust her and mm-hmm. they tell her like she'll listen, give them love. So that just, I'm thankful for having that from my mom.
So you're like the perfect combination of your parents. Yeah. Like you're like from your mom's side, you got that loving, caring, extroverted, like, hey, let me just pour my love. Yeah. And then from your dad, like, hey, let's save money. Let's preserve wealth.
Yeah. And that's who I am.
Yeah. And that's Ish.
Yeah. Faith. Yeah. Faith is important. And so that's a combination. And you start, I mean, if you really reflect on it and understand your parents, like you're a little bit like them. And I had this conversation with my dad when he retired. I said, Dad, what is one thing, like, and they're my mentors, like my mom, my dad, my mentors. And honestly, a lot of my clients are my mentors too, because they're, 60, 65. Right. They lived life. I'm 38. So like they have more wisdom than I do. So right. I get to hang out with mentors and, they leverage me and my talents. Right. And then they give me, advice. So, right. Cause it's, in the word says, it's, it's important to learn from our own failures, but, also get wisdom from people that have failed. So I always like to share my failures and where I failed to younger guys or people that just want to ask me questions.
For sure.
Because that's important.
Yeah.
Because it reminds us and then it helps them. So.
For sure. Now, I mean, you mentioned that most of your clients are older, right? Because they're at that retirement age, which is, you're gaining wisdom from them too, because they've been through more, right? And you're learning from their mistakes, which is pretty cool. But what I think is very interesting is that, like you said, you're 38, right? But they're, a 50 or 60 or 70-year-old is trusting a 38-year-old with their life savings. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how does a 38-year-old kid, I still think you're a kid. How does a 38
I feel like a kid
I'm 35. That's why I said that. But how does a 38-year-old, or even if you're 18, right, and you're trying to get a client who's 35, it's the same thing. So how does a 38-year-old convince a 60 or 70-year-old to trust them or trust you with their life savings, their 401k or their retirement?
Yeah, I mean, with the bigger clients, it's always they know me. They've known me for 5 years or more. Typically, is just building the relationship, understanding. One of the crazy story. One of my top clients, I met him at In-N-Out here across the street.
Oh, really?
And I recognized him from somewhere, but I didn't really know who he was. And I said, "Hey, where did I know you from?" Anyways, 4 years later, he retired from SoCal Gas Company.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of my favorite clients to work with, but that's where I met him. But it was probably like a 3 or 4 year relationship. But here's the cool part is once you have a good network of retired guys and they refer you people.
Right.
And those are my biggest referrals. So, like when I invite a guy to play golf, I'm like tomorrow I'm playing with the guy that's near retirement. He works for AT&T. And I said, "Hey, invite your friend. Or, so I build relationships. And that's with intention, right? Building relationships.
Right.
So I'd say just be genuine. I asked him for advice, life advice, wisdom. And then they get to know me and my family and what I do, my values. And then there's the technical aspect of it, right? So they look at your history. I mean, I've been a licensed stockbroker since 2007. And I have a degree in finance and economics. So there's a little bit of I'm just a guy, but
right.
There's a little bit of, credibility with
right.
the credentials, right? But more importantly than the credentials is, being a kind person and listening and understanding. So listening is, sometimes listening is the most important part, and
right.
responding with the right action. Like I said, I get that from my mom.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think you're really good at, for people that know you, like you're really good at like just calling people just out of the blue, just to say hi. And I'm like, sometimes like you'll call me and I'm like, "Hey, what's up, Ish?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm just calling to say hi." I'm like, "No, like, what's up?"
Once a quarter. Once a quarter. You're on my list.
I'm like, I don't need, I'm like, because most people who call me, they're like, "Hey, Joel, I need a P&L. Hey, Joel, I need a balance sheet." Yeah. So I'm just used to saying, "Hey, what's up?" And then like expecting something. And you're like, "Oh no, I'm just calling to say hi."
Yeah, how you doing? How's your family, dude? Yeah, I remember that time you came over for breakfast, and I got to know your family and your kids.
Yeah.
And, you came over to my house, and like you're just a friend, so I just follow up with you and then check in, and I want to know how you're doing in business and life and everything else.
Yeah, and I think that's why you've been to where that's why you've gotten to where you're at, just because. You're a people person, like you said, your strength, right? And you just like to just connect with people and just find out who they are as a person, get into their subconscious mind.
Yeah. Curiosity, dude. Like one of my mentors 6 years ago told me that curiosity is going to take you far. You're curious of everything. You're curious of like, I have clients that are, physicians. I have clients that are business owners. I have, guys, work for PG&E, Chevron, oil companies. Different aspects. So I get to learn a little bit of everything. So like I tell my wife, I know a little bit of everything,
right?
Just from my clients, because they tell me about their practice, like or they tell me about their business or their so I know enough about a little bit of everything.
I could see that. I mean, you're even like surprising, like, "Oh yeah, you're asking me tax questions," and I'm like, "Dude, how do you know this? Aren't you a financial advisor, not a CPA?" And it's like
it's kind of like it's kind of correlated, right? Like right. Our professions are kind of correlated indirectly, but
right.
It's important for me to know these because if a client asks me and I answer and they verify with their CPA, that builds credibility.
Right.
So it's like I love to learn. I like to watch your videos and your podcast because I learn something when I read a book or when I listen to a mentor, when I listen to your podcast. So yeah, no, that's curiosity. Like I think that's what like my mind's always like
for sure. And I think what is even important about curiosity is that you're good at asking questions. What questions to ask, the right questions. Like, and it's like, and you just, like you said, like that kind of engineer mindset of like that. "Oh, what about this? And have you thought about that?" And it's like, "Oh, damn, I didn't think about this," And I think that's important. But you do that also at the personal level, not just at the technical level. Just like the way they behave, or why is it that just getting to know them. And I think as a financial advisor, that's probably like one of the biggest traits that someone can have.
Yeah.
And I think you have that.
Yeah. One of the things that I also do, like when guys retire, they don't know what to do. They don't have a plan for after retirement. So I help also counsel them on lifestyle expectations, and because you don't want to just, sit around and do nothing and, die, right? Like that's number one reason to retire is die. So
right.
So I have to ask some questions to help them understand what their lifestyle is going to be like after they retire.
Right.
And a lot of my clients, I started asking those questions like 5 or 4 years before they retire. So that's I'm looking for the clients that are going to retire in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? Because I want to be a resource for them. And like I said earlier about the 401k, now I have the ability to manage their 401k money, even though they're still employed at the current employer. So that's something that I never thought would be possible, but our industry is really evolving and changing, and it's on the cutting edge. Like I'm the only one in Bakersfield right now approved for that. So it's kicking off. And
nice. I think that's important because when you're in like my age, for example, or your age, like in our 30s, like retirement, it's like, we know it's coming, but it still kind of feels a little bit far away. Maybe not as far away for you because you're dealing with it all the time. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's like, all right, I know I got to do it. But I think most people like are that way because I have a lot of my clients. I'm like, what are you doing for retirement? I would say 9 out of 10 times, nothing. 9 out of 10 times, I'm like, dude, even from a tax perspective, you could save money, but even not even for that, it's like literally, what are you going to do lifestyle wise when you retire? And it's like, they haven't even thought about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't even cross their mind.
It doesn't cross their mind. So like I think that's the part of building the relationship is that I care enough to ask those questions of what they want to do in retirement. And sometimes the meetings go like very first meetings, they go 80% that we don't even talk about the money or the investments, how much they have. We go into that first, and then eventually it leads to that. Right. So,
right.
But I'm a go with the flow type of guy. Like I kind of go with their, cause I don't want to do what my intention is, what I see. I need to sell them or nothing. Now that is, that's uncomfortable for me.
Right.
So I like to just go with what's important to them, their personality. And within, let's say 10 minutes, I know what type of person they are. Like I have this thing called a client preference model. It's like 4 different type of clients that I kind of, each, and it's based on personality, right?
Right.
You have the person that, like the engineer, right? The guy that wants to know, ask a lot of good questions. There's a relationship person. They care more about the relationship than the technical aspect.
Right.
Because think about it, like if I have a client that comes in and they're more of a relationship person, and then the meeting goes like, if I were presenting to the engineer, they'd be like, right? Like, whatever, I don't care. Like, how they want me to ask them how their trip was to Europe or their trip was to, that right. type of, they ask me, how's Jacob doing?
Right.
And my son. And so that's like 90% that, and then 10% technical.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then there's the guy, the investor that puts their money here, puts their money there. And I'm just like a order taker, right? They use me for this and that's it. And then the last one is the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's the one that wants to like, no, I think I said that 3. It's evolving. My way of like looking at people is evolving.
Yeah. I think what's important, what you said is just like reading personalities, right? And adapting to their personality. Yeah. Because if you do that, then you can tailor your service to basically the way they live their life. Or like you say, you're an order taker for some clients, but for others, you're like, hey, let's talk about life and your trip and my son or your son, whatever. Yeah. And you tailor your service around their personality. Yeah.
And I enjoy most is the technical aspect of it. Like the details of the investments that, I'm buying in their accounts and et cetera. And, explaining that process and how we make the decisions to buy those investments. And I'm always looking for input from my clients too. Like whenever I always ask them, hey, where are you spending your money differently than you were 5 years ago? Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, like if you would have put, let's say $10,000 in Apple in 2001, or Amazon, right? or Nvidia, or like those companies.
Don't remind me. I had money invested in at that time, and I cashed out too early.
Oh, dude, yeah, dude. So that was a long-term hold. But anyways, but there's in the next 10 years, there's going to be new companies, right? That are going to be that are probably public right now that you can invest in, but you have to know
what's trending.
what's trending. Yeah, where are our average, like, think about it. 10 years ago, we weren't spending as much as on our, like, your household budgets wasn't on Amazon, right? It was something else.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So and then I remember when the first Apple iPod, what was it?
Oh, the iPod, yeah, like the
iPod,
MP3 player.
The MP3 player. Yeah, that was like the first Apple.
Yeah.
You know, who knew we would, live on our phones, right? So,
Right. No one knew that.
But going forward, right, like the next trend of the next Amazons, the next Apples, Tesla's still in the, early stages, but, those are going to be the, where we're going to spend money. So I want to get out ahead, and I want to put my clients' money in those companies. So I always like to ask questions like, hey, what are your kids spending money on?
Right.
What are your kids doing? Like lifestyle, like what are they into? What is their generational like habits or their social, like how do they interact with friends and where are they spending money?
Right. I think, reading trends is important. Actually, I bought my first house because of reading trends. Like when I was in college, Blockbuster was dipping, and actually somebody brought up Netflix. I ended up buying some Netflix stock, and I think I put in like maybe $5,000 or $10,000. It grew to, in like 3 years, to $72,000. I should have left it, but I cashed out and went towards the down payment on my house, 20% down. Didn't have no PMI, none of that.
Yeah.
And because of reading trends.
Yeah. But if you think about it, your house probably appreciated.
True.
Probably not by the same percentage, but you're able to get more participation in real estate because you're leveraging, right? You're using a loan, right? Versus in a stock, you have to put the cash in, right?
True.
You can leverage, but it's too risky.
Right. Yeah. Margins and stuff.
Yep.
Cool. So you just started Romero Wealth Management?
Yeah. So Romero Wealth Management is basically, so I call it Romero Wealth Management, powered by Charles Schwab, because Charles Schwab is a custodian bank that I use, the investment company that I use. So if you hire me to manage your retirement money, I use Charles Schwab, which is a popular investment company. Yeah. So the guy that hired me, like I said earlier, he left Morgan Stanley, went independent as an advisor.
Okay.
His firm is called Lattice Wealth Management. I'm probably going to change that at some point, but Romero, that's my last name. So typically, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I may change it. I may keep it.
It's just easy. Sandoval tax CPAs.
Exactly. Yeah, it's easy. So,
yeah. So
like I said, we're managing our money together. So we make decisions on investments that we, he's 63. So he's a little different generation. I'm a younger generation. So, we kind of bounce ideas off each other. Because, in the next 10 years, there's going to be a lot of wealth transition from baby boomers to next generation. So
cool. So what's in store? I mean, you just started this, you might change the name, not sure, but what's in store? Like, what do you have going, like, planned for the future? Like, where do you see Romero 3-4 years from now?
3-4 years from now, I see myself managing about 50 million in retirement assets. That's kind of where my nugget by 45. That's my goal.
Nice.
So at that point, I'd probably, start like some nonprofit or something, something that I'm passionate about. I think, the show, I'm big with, in the special needs community because my son.
Right.
So I like to do then, like when he turns 18, I want to open a restaurant called Jacob's Cheeseburgers.
Really?
He loves cheeseburgers, man. So,
okay.
So that's I've been saying that since he was like 3 years old.
Nice.
Because he loves cheeseburgers, and he would basically like be the host or something like that. He's 12 now, so I have 6 more years, so I have a little slush fund for that. So,
nice.
But that's a main thing. But who knows? That's God willing. That's that those are the things that I want to do.
Yeah, and I think if you have we said 50 million in invested assets, did I hear, or 50 billion?
No, I'm just kidding. No, it's my goal is 50 million. Okay. Right now I'm a little under 20 million.
Okay.
I do have an opportunity to manage money for a nonprofit, which is like around 10 million. But the revenues are a little lower for larger scale company. The percentage that I charge is a little lower. So, but that's a new opportunity that I'm excited about because that's presenting to board members and getting really in the weeds of the investments and So that's a good opportunity. I'm speaking it into existence now. I'm managing that $10 million nonprofit
Nice.
fund. So yeah, 50 million. So like right now, a little under 20. So, it's going to take me it could take me a year. It could take me 5 years. I mean,
Right.
50 million is kind of where I'm at. 45 is my goal.
Cool, man. That's a great goal to have. So if somebody wants to hit you up for anything related to wealth management, whether they want to invest or maybe they want to have you as a mentor or anything, like what's the best way for them to contact you?
My cell phone number, 661-900-2058. That is the best. And you have my Facebook stuff and.
For sure, yeah. And on Instagram, he's under Ismael_1 Romero. So if you want to follow him, and he's out there living the lifestyle, attending the World Series, Dodger games. He's out there on the golf course, so you'll get to enjoy his lifestyle as well and get to know Ish. He's such a good guy.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it, and life is short, and like I said, God blessed me with the resources to do it. So, a lot of times I think like my clients that do travel and do all those things, I kind of, like I said, when you spend some time with people that are older than you and that have a certain lifestyle, you start wanting to like be like them. So I think that is part of the influence in that. And then my dad always, traveled everywhere and did everything. So I'm just kind of, like I said, I'm like my parents.
Yeah, for sure. So. Yeah, you're influenced by who you hang out with.
Exactly.
That's cool, man. Well, thanks, Ish, for being on the show. It's been a pleasure. I think a lot of my listeners got a lot of value from this. And if you want to hit up Ish, you got his contact info as well as his Instagram handle.
Thanks a lot, Joe.